Powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
The news at this time comes to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories. I am Deanna Jordan. A very good morning to you. First, the lead stories. The opposition is claiming victory for forcing the government to say that Londoners will not pay more for electricity. A minibus driver in the Rupununi has died in an accident. On the regional scene, Antigua and Barbuda is hoping to desalinate 100% of its potable water demand. For the international news, we'll bring to you the latest bulletin from the BBC World Service. The details of these and other stories will be coming up in just a moment.
A COVID-19 PCR test is now mandatory for many routine activities, including travel and return-to-work purposes. At Eureka, our trained and experienced staff will ensure confidentiality while your test is conducted in a professional and timely manner, with results in just 48 hours. So the next time you require an efficient and hassle-free PCR COVID-19 test, call 624-8378, 608-8378, or 623-7233 to schedule your appointment. You can also ask about our house call testing service.
And now the news in detail. Londoner leader of the People's National Congress Reform, Aubrey Norton, on Sunday insisted that the government planned to increase electricity bills for Londoners by removing a subsidy. The government last week suspended the management of the London Utility Cooperative Society Limited, LUSCL, citing several grounds for lack of accountability. Instead, a 7-member interim management committee has been appointed to manage affairs of the company that supplies electricity, mainly to Wismar and Christiansburg. Addressing residents, management, and members of LUSCL, Mr. Norton had accused the government of hatching a plan to remove the electricity subsidy, which would see Londoners paying more for electricity. Prime Minister Mark Phillips says it is not true that Londoners will be paying more for electricity, and he denies that the government is planning to take away the London Utility Cooperative Society Limited.
At no time is the government interested in taking control of the London Utilities Co-op Society Limited. At no time will the government direct the affairs of the London Utility Co-op Society Limited, and at no time did the government mention or pass any instructions to increase the electricity rates paid by the people of London.
And President Irfan Ali on Sunday said the PNCR leader was bent on misleading Guyanese. In ruling out an increase in electricity bills for Londoners, he says the People's Progressive Party will not do anything to erode its support.
When we came into government, we came with a banner, stronger together. We will do nothing under our leadership that would make us weaker. We will do everything under our leadership and this government leadership to make us stronger. Stronger under one Guyana. Beware of those that try to destroy distrust. Beware of those who try to instigate bad feelings against each other.
President Irfan Ali. Region 10 Parliamentarian for Partnership for National Unity plus Alliance for Change, APNU plus AFC, German Figuera, says the opposition is responsible for ensuring that Londoners do not pay more for electricity. He says the leader of the opposition, Mr. Aubrey Norton, has caused Vice President Bharat Jagdeo and the People's Progressive Party to pull back on their intended plan to increase electricity rates for London and Region 10 and from removing the subsidy. The Region 10 National Assemblyman said all of the statements the PPP has put out have only reaffirmed Linden's firm position that there will be no increase in electricity tariffs.
What is also important too is that in their haste to respond to a fabricated lie they of themselves created, they would have committed to the position of Linden people that we will not accept any increase in electrical charges. So we had Jack Vio run out and say, we're not raising electricity charges in Linden. We had the Prime Minister did the same, but that has always been our fundamental position. So they now have publicly stated Linden people's position that we will not accept any increase in electrical charges, and we will hold them to that.
APNU plus AFC parliamentarian Jormin Figuera. The president of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, GCCI, Timothy Tucker, believes that one of the drawbacks facing local companies is their failure to offer shares to the public. Mr. Tucker says records from the Guyana Stock Exchange show that no company has made a public offering since 1994. He says there are advantages to offering shares to the public.
It has to be somewhere that you aspire to be. It cannot be that you want to do this by yourself and then you're locked when you become a medium-sized business and don't envision to grow your company. And then you wonder sometimes, maybe you joined the wrong organization or you're part of the wrong party, and then something changes and you become now the enemy of somebody. But then if you had opened that company to the public, then how can anybody go against a Guyanese company? And that is the purpose of taking your company public. And that is the highest point you can reach.
President of the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Timothy Tucker. A man who was driving the Anai Central Village Council's minibus has died in an accident in North Rupununi. Dead is 48-year-old Lennox George of Anai, North Rupununi. Police say the accident occurred at about 3:45 Sunday morning on the Bina Hill Public Road. Two other occupants, 20-year-old Jenliana Williams and her 6-year-old son, Julio Williams, both of Anai Village, North Rupununi, have been admitted to a nearby health center for observation. Investigators were told that George was driving the bus at a fast rate of speed when the vehicle ended up in a pothole. The driver reportedly lost control of the minibus and it struck a nearby tree. George was pronounced dead at the scene of the accident by a doctor. And now for news in the region. Suriname has imposed a temporary ban on a brand of chocolate known as Kinder. Star News reports that the Ministry of Health in Suriname says the International Food Safety Authority's network, InfoSan Secretariat, is currently monitoring an outbreak of Salmonella typhimurium in multiple countries believed to be related to the consumption of chocolate products. InfoSan has been informed through the European Rapid Alert System for Food and Feed that the affected products that may be related to this outbreak have also been distributed to Suriname. The Ministry of Health says the safest way to guard against Salmonella is not to consume the Kinder brand of chocolate. Barbados is robbing itself by not allowing public servants to serve the public. This is according to a number of political scientists who agree the Public Service Act needs reviewing. The Barbados Nation newspaper reports that this is in light of the suspension and disciplinary charges being brought against 2 teachers who took part in the January 19th general election. Former Barbados Union of Teachers President Pedro Shepherd and coach Alwyn Babb have both been suspended with half pay by the Ministry of Public Service. They are off the job pending the outcome of disciplinary hearings related to their candidacy for the Democratic Labour Party's campaign, prompting cries of victimization from that party. Political scientist Senator Dr. Christina Hines, Dr. George Bell, Deveron Bruce, and Peter Wickham weighed in on the hot topic. St. Martin's Parliament is getting ready to hold its first consultation on the Charter of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The expert roundtable is slated for April 19th. In 2021, the Committee for Constitutional Affairs and Decolonization gave multi-party approval for the hosting of a high-level discussion. SMS News reports that the main objective to receive information and advice on designing an approach to amending the Kingdom Charter. Based on the proposal by a subcommittee of the committee, local and kingdom constitutional experts were agreed upon. These experts were invited to present a position paper in relation to a number of themes. These include the Charter of the Kingdom of the Netherlands as it relates to the United Nations in terms of decolonization and the democratic deficit within the kingdom. The panel consists of Dr. Nilde Arduin, Mr. Julio Romney, Professor Dr. Gerard Hoogers, and Mr. Reynold Groeneveld. During the roundtable discussion, members of St. Martin's Parliament will have the opportunity to discuss and debate the themes with the panelists. The public will also be able to virtually submit questions to the panelists. Antigua and Barbuda has decided to produce all of its potable water by desalinating more seawater. Prime Minister Gaston Browne says last year there were only 18 inches of rainfall, the lowest since records have been kept. He notes that usually Antigua gets about 36 inches of rainfall each year, and that is already low. Antigua Newsroom reports that the Antigua and Barbuda leader says that lower than usual rainfall is due to climate change.
So it's evident that climate change is actually wreaking havoc, and we are suffering from these persistent droughts. Now, at no point during our planning, we expected that our rainfall would have fallen precipitously by a further 50%, because ordinarily at 35, 36 inches, that is extremely low.
Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister, Gaston Browne. And now for the international news, here's the latest news bulletin from the BBC World Service.
BBC News. Hello, this is Jerry Smith. The French President Emmanuel Macron has appealed for voter support in a second-round runoff election later this month. He'll face the far-right leader Marine Le Pen. She trailed him by about 4 percentage points in the first round on Sunday. The far-left leader, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who came a close third, told his supporters not to give a single vote to Ms. Le Pen. Other mainstream candidates asked voters to back Mr. Macron for a second term. Lucy Williamson is in Paris.
Mr. Macron is still the favourite to win, but after 5 years of Macron's presidency, he's no longer the newcomer who can promise everything and hasn't really got a record that people can point to. He's having to really defend the kind of president he's been, and he's lost a lot of support on the left, so he's having to counter that. It's also 5 years when Marine Le Pen has been reaching out to new voters and softening her image. So I think what's going to happen now is that voters who don't really like either of them are going to be choosing between them, and that's far less certain now than it was before.
The candidate for the French centre-right party, Valérie Pécresse, has made a public appeal for donations to cover €5 million in campaign finance losses. She registered the worst-ever election result for her Republicans party. Pakistan's parliament is due to be meeting shortly to elect a new prime minister after Imran Khan lost a no-confidence vote at the weekend. Coalition partners blamed him for the country's crumbling economy. The main opposition leader, Shehbaz Sharif, looks certain to win. He's the younger brother of Nawaz Sharif, who was Prime Minister of Pakistan 3 times. Sikandar Kamani is outside Parliament in Islamabad.
The political climate is extremely polarised in Pakistan. So if you're an opposition supporter, you think that Shehbaz Sharif will be great for governance and that he will help improve the daily lives of ordinary people here. We've seen rising costs of living, for example. But if you're a supporter of Imran Khan, well, you think this is a return to the old Pakistan that they'd hoped to get rid of, an old Pakistan dominated by dynastic political elites.
Twitter says its biggest shareholder, Elon Musk, has decided not to join the company's board. This report from James Clayton.
Elon Musk says that he loves Twitter, but the social media platform has lost its way. Last week it was revealed he'd purchased a $3 billion stake in Twitter, making him the company's biggest shareholder. Now that would normally mean a seat on the board, and with that, influence. But a tweet from Twitter's CEO, Parag Agrawal, says Mr. Musk has pulled out. The tweet didn't explain exactly why. Mr. Musk then tweeted with an emoji, a face with a hand over its mouth. Perhaps only Mr. Musk knows what that means.
World News from the BBC. The Ukrainian authorities are stepping up their efforts to evacuate residents from the Donbas region as Russia's military offensive shifts to the east of the country. The latest British military intelligence assessment says shelling has continued in eastern regions, with Ukrainian forces repulsing several assaults. The number of people killed by gunmen in a series of raids in Nigeria's Plateau state has risen to more than 135. Gunmen on motorbikes attacked several remote villages in Kanam local government area on Sunday, shooting people, stealing livestock and burning down homes. The authorities have not yet given official details. Residents are complaining that the security forces took nearly 24 hours to arrive following the attacks. North Korea is marking the 10th anniversary of Kim Jong-un's official rise to power. The celebrations will mask deep problems for the country. Our Asia-Pacific editor Michael Bristow has the details.
Kim Jong-un, only 28 when he became the head of the ruling Workers' Party 10 years ago, has been graced with a new portrait for the anniversary. There's also an exhibition and perhaps later this week a military parade. One senior North Korean politician described him as a gifted thinker, outstanding statesman and peerless commander. For all the celebrations, North Korea has become poorer since Mr. Kim took over, and his country is just as isolated as it ever was. But Mr. Kim's pursuit of advanced weapons means the outside world will never ignore him.
Students have been demonstrating in the Indonesian capital Jakarta, in part at suggestions that the President, Joko Widodo, wants to extend his stay in office. There are reports of police firing tear gas and water cannon as the protesters marched towards the Parliament building. On Sunday, Jokowi, as the President is known, denied rumours that he wants to stay in power. Leaders are allowed 2 5-year terms. BBC News.
The news was brought to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories.
Don't let the fear of contracting the coronavirus disease deter you from seeking the medical care you need. At Eureka Labs, we ensure the safety of our clients and staff with our rigid sanitization routine. This involves the use of ultraviolet lights to effectively rid the air and all surfaces of viruses and bacteria that may be present throughout the lab daily. The light works to rapidly inactivate microorganisms through a physical process that is invisible to human eye. So the next time you need a checkup, don't hesitate to give us a call on 225-7574 to schedule your appointment.
Here now is a recap of the leads. The opposition is claiming victory for forcing the government to say that Londoners will not pay more for electricity. A minibus driver in the Rupununi has died in an accident. In regional news, Antigua and Barbuda is hoping to desalinate 100% of its potable water demand. And that's the end of the news.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.